Hello everybody! In this video I'm going to show you how to remove the depth adjustment bolt from the frog. Removing the depth adjustment bolt from the frog is something I don't normally do. The reason I don't do it is because it was just too hard. I never did take the time to figure out the best way to do it. But I've had people ask me, so I figured it out. I practiced on 4 frogs of different vintage. They're all Stanleys. And now I feel confident that the technique works and I'm ready to show it to you. The things you're going to need are 2 of the older style depth adjustment nuts. They're the smaller ones. The proper size straight tip screwdrivers to fit the screws on your frog. You're going to need a punch, a couple pair of vice grips, a hammer, some oil, and some penetrating oil. When I did the test on the 4 frogs, I didn't use the penetrating oil. I took these apart dry. I wanted to make sure that it was possible to do without any assistance from penetrating oil. If I had used the penetrating oil, I'm sure it would have been a whole lot easier. I don't want to take any chances with that screw, so I'm using a properly fit screwdriver, and I've locked the frog in my vise to make sure that it's good and steady. The removal of the plate and screw were uneventful, just the way I like it. If it wouldn't come out with any ease, it'd have to be some penetrating oil and maybe possibly some heat to it to get it out. Now I'm going to use that hammer and the punch to knock the pin out that holds the Y adjuster in place. The punch is pointing at the pin where it's coming through the side of the frog. Out she comes. Now that all the small parts are out of the way, I'm going to do something I didn't do on the other 4, and that's give it a shot of the PB blaster. I probably don't need this penetrating oil because I did on the others, but I'm doing this just as a precaution. I'm just going to let it sit for about 2 or 3 minutes. After leaving it sit for a couple minutes, it's time to take the depth adjustment brass nuts, and I'm going to run this first one all the way down to the bottom, turning it tight by hand. Next one, following right up on top of the first one, running it all the way down until it hits the first depth adjustment nut. Now I'm going to take my vice grips and I'm going to turn the first one as tight as I can get it within reason, bottomed out. I'm going to follow that up with the second one. Of course, these nuts are sacrificial. I'm going to keep them just for the sole purpose of doing this. Now I'm going to double up my vice grips. And one last tightening effort. Make sure they're bumped against each other good and hard. Now the vice grip's going on the innermost nut. Now clockwise is loosened, counterclockwise is tight. So I'm going to start applying pressure to this. And there it goes. The bolt has come loose. Work it back and forth a little bit, in and out, left and right. So the bolt has come loose. I should be able to turn it out. There it is. Next step is to lock your vice grips back onto your 2 depth adjustment nuts. Unlock them and remove the depth adjustment nuts. And that's it. The biggest problem with this technique of removing that bolt is you got to have 2 sacrificial depth adjustment nuts. When you go to put the bolt back in, or you're replacing a bolt or whatever reason you had for taking it out, there is a right and a wrong way to do it. You see on the right hand side that the domed end, nice curve to it, that's the side that sticks out of the frog. The flat end is the end that goes into the frog. That's the end on the left. To put the bolt back in, take those 2 depth adjustment nuts and lock them together with the vice grips. Turn it counterclockwise till it bottoms out in the frog. And then finish it Put your vice grips on the top depth adjustment nut and turn it down in. That's good. Now you're going to take your vice grips, lock them back onto both nuts, and now you got to turn till the nuts break free. Take the nuts off of the depth adjustment bolt, and you're done. I've put the frog all back together and it's ready to go to work. Too bad I don't have a plane to put that one on. That was one of my spares. But that's all there is to it. Seems to work pretty good. I did test it out on 5 frogs now and it worked quite well. I did use heat on 2 of those old ones that you see sitting there. Probably wouldn't have to done that if I used the penetrating oil. I don't think it's going to be very often that you'll have to replace the depth adjustment bolt on the frog. But if and when you do, now you know how to do it. Well, that's it for this video. Got to look to the pile, see what's next. Time for supper. Bye.